ahead and call us to order and declare that we have a quorum of 7 members present. Takes us to item C, consideration, discussion, possible action related to a management oversight workshop for the CSISD Technology Department. Dr. Ely.
Thank you, Mr. Harris, members of the board. This is a part of board policy and has been, I guess since the early part of the teens, to pause twice a year and have the board take a really deep dive into one of our 6 major areas where we expend a lot of taxpayer money. Things like maintenance and operation and construction and one of the ones we're talking transportation, and what we'll be talking about this afternoon, which is technology services. So we sit back and relax. We'll have lunch here coming up in about an hour or so. We're planning on being here for about 2 hours to talk about technology services. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We are going to plan on taking a break about midway through, go get some food, which is here in the back, and allow Ms. Hawkins, who is here, to do a demonstration for us, get set up. So we'll have a brief demonstration on some of how technology is working in College Station ISD campuses. So, but without further ado, I'd like to introduce David Hutchison, who is our Director for Technology, who will be leading us through our discussion today. All right, Mr. Hutchison.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Ely. Thank you, Mr. Harris and board members. Hopefully this will be entertaining and enlightening for you. So,
At least enlightening.
Enlightening, yes it is. It'll be entertaining too. That's why Ms. Hawkins is here, for the entertainment, to make it exciting. That's right. So, yeah, so as Dr. Ely mentioned, we're going to go over what we do in technology and how we are here to support the district in both business operations and, more importantly, our students and teachers. So with that, we'll start going through the presentation. As Dr. Ely mentioned, you know, and I'll blow through these. These are the 6 areas that we need to cover. Technology being highlighted in red because it's the most important. Correct? It is today.
David's got jokes.
So yes, it is, and you know, try to keep it light. But as we decided, we wanted to go through, and so you can analyze and see what we do, make suggestions if we're doing something that you think we need to improve upon. You know, that's what we're here for. So please feel free to speak and make this as entertaining and community and interactive as possible, and entertaining. So anyway, so what we need to know is, you know, our students and employees being safe, you know, the district assets secure. Are we basically doing our job? Are we trying to make the things work? Are we keeping us out of jail? Importantly me, but also the entire board and everybody else. And so does fairness prevail? Or, and I should say fairness, equity, you know, does that include? Because that is always in the base of our mind. So, and we've had lots of discussions about that. And so we'll cover some of that stuff too. So the presentation, what we're going to do is we're going to go over the program description. We're looking at system integrity, and more importantly, then go into our performance metrics. What do we do to make sure that our guys are doing what they're supposed to be doing and delivering upon what the taxpayers require from us? And then we'll go into policy recommendations, and if there's any recommendations that, you know, we would like the board to do or change or modify, and give y'all time to go back to that too. So with that being said, program description, and I'm just going to the quick agenda on this part. So what is our purpose? What governs us? What is our overview? What is how are we broken out? And then we'll go through these in the next slides. So I'm just going to flip through this one real quick. So our departmental mission. Basically, this is what we kind of guides us and our principles is we're here to support, you know, the students, parents, faculty, and staff. And I mentioned, you know, this includes not only what we do in the classroom, this is what we do outside the classroom in business, purchasing, facilities, you name it, we kind of all touch it. And my kind of creed I kind of go by when, you know, I was hired here, I told Dr. Ely, who was the interviewee and hired me, is my goal is everybody remembers their first teacher or their favorite teacher, and you know they all reflect on that. I know I will never be remembered that way because I'm the guy in the back. Nobody ever thinks about us. But until something goes wrong. Correct. But I do want the kids when they leave this district to remember, you know, we really never had any issues. Technology just was a tool that was there for our teachers to use, and it just worked. And so that's my driving thing, and I make my department feel that way too, is our driving thing is we're the guys behind the scenes making everything work, and when these students leave, I want them to have a good experience and not ever question, this didn't work, that didn't work. Everything went smoothly. So this is where that mission came about. I will tell you that this will be upgraded later on in the year because we've been doing a whole lot of work on our learning profiles and our district improvement plan. So as that evolves, we evolve too. So we can't stay stagnant, but you know, this is kind of our driving mission. So our current departmental goals, Ms. Nolan has been involved in it. We are working on our long-range technology plan. We do that every 3 years. And right now, these are the goals that the committee has come up with. We've got, you know, one more meeting, I think, left to finalize everything. But as you go through this, this was based off of a TEA report we used to have to do. It was mandated. It's no longer mandated, but obviously we want to keep, you know, planning and making sure we're taking care of the needs of the district. So we get together every 3 years and we go through this. And so basically it's broken into 4 different categories. The first one, if you look, there's a lot of similarity, but the first one is basically teaching and learning as a category we need to do. The second one is educational preparation and development. Third is leadership and administration. And the fourth one was infrastructure. And so these are the categories that we kind of were mandated to do, and they make sense, so we're kind of keeping with it. We asked the committee if they wanted to make any adjustments, and they stuck with those 4 categories. The last one we did change because infrastructure kind of sounds like wires and pipes and things like that. So we went to an ecosystem because it kind of involves everything. So we will bring this to you probably the next May board meeting, and for you to look at the final plan and see what the committee has come up with recommendations. So I don't think there will be a lot of changes in this, but it just kind of reiterates what we kind of want to do. Is we want to provide our teachers, faculty, staff, students with support. We want to make sure our teachers get the training that they need so that they can integrate this technology into the curriculum. And we want to make sure we're safe and we're communicating, and that's kind of what we've been going through, and that's where the goals have come from. So based on that, we did want to point out that, you know, on the 2015 plan, we sat down and these are some of the successes. So, you know, I told the committee, yes, we're not just spinning our wheels here. Everything the committee comes up with, we try to implement in some form or fashion. So teaching and learning, you know, some of the things that came out of that was we wanted to be able to have a one-stop shop for things. I mean, Ms. Ryan I've taught y'all on Schoology. Some of you have students in this district. You've been using Schoology, and I think it's been a great success, but that came specifically out of this long-range technology plan of 2015. Educational preparation and development, again, I'm going to point back to Ms. Ryan because her position did not exist until this. And so again, it's making sure that the tools that we provide are being used. And then the other success is, you know, digital citizenship. We'll cover some of that later on. Infrastructure for technology, again, that was based on infrastructure, but again, it gets into bandwidth increases. We'll cover all of that, but just so you know, we've quadrupled our bandwidth since the last time I did this presentation 3 years ago. And, you know, right now we're holding steady, but as soon as we give it to them, they take it. So we're constantly improving. Improved wireless access coverages, you'll see that too in a later slide, and you'll be amazed at how much we've put into those resources. But again, all based off of what the committee has come up with in 2015, and the committee Ms. Nolan's been involved in, you know, if she wants to add into it, I don't put you under pressure, but I think we've had lots of good, lively discussion, and there will be lots of, you know, future development based off of what the committee has come up with. So that being said, what policies govern technology? And this, as you see, we kind of touch a whole lot of them. So there's a whole plethora of them. If you want to go back and compare, they're there. Give you a chance to look at all that. So let's get into the meat. So what do we have in the staff? We have 28 full-time employees, and we do supplement in the summer. So I don't think anybody here has had a child. No, we haven't had anybody here's children work for the summer. But we do bring in, you know, the recent high school graduates, and you know, we make them sweat and do the grunt labor and everything else. So we do bring in employees on a part-time basis in the summer. But it breaks down into you've got me as the director of technology. Computer services or management information systems, I just don't like that legacy name, so you'll see MIS in there, but that's Ms. Janaszek. Think of financial information systems, student information systems. She takes care of all of that. technology coordinator and digital learning coordinator. That's our instructional technology side. Miss Ryan is behind us. Miss Long and Miss Janashek would be here, but they are actually at a conference about our financial and student information systems right now, so they'll be back tomorrow. And then we'll break into the network services, which we have 4 gentlemen on there. Systems administration, we have a mix of, 6 people working in there. And our technician coordinator, she is the one that basically manages the technicians. And so that's Miss Broyles, and then we have 9 campus technicians included in that. And if you look at it in an org chart, this is essentially the same thing, just broken out a little bit better.
I have a quick question. So those campus technicians, are those the people that are also teachers?
No.
Okay, I'm trying to get all of this.
Yeah, and straight. And the underneath instructional technology, there you have the instructional technology coordinator, digital learning. That's Julie, instructional technology associate is Julie, Shannon, Stephanie, and your campus technology facilitators. Those are teachers that receive a stipend at every campus, and some campuses have 2 based on the size. And their whole role is to take curriculum and help the teachers infuse it into their curriculum and better use the tools. So they are full-time teachers working on the side as a stipend, and so they do a lot of work after hours, a whole lot of work after hours. So hopefully that answers your question.
So they were not included in that number?
No,
Okay.
no, they are not. So and I need to clarify, we said 9 campus technicians. One of those is a help desk. So if you look at it, it says 8 up there with a help desk included in there. So, and that is a breakdown of systems. We have, 2 systems administrator, a junior systems administrator. Those are the server guys, just to be, blunt. We'll cover that later on. We have 2 programmers, a junior and senior, and a systems technician. Yeah. She's our mobile device manager. And same with the network, you can kind of see how it's broken down in there. But lots of people doing lots of crazy things in the back of where nobody ever sees, in the closets, basically. And they don't get a lot of recognition, but I do want to point out that we've got a very, very strong group. So how do we hire these people? So when we go out and we look, technicians are basically the ones we hire the most. We have not had a large turnover in what I call our administrative group. That would be the system, network, instructional technology group. But our campus technicians, we turn over a whole lot, and we'll talk about that later on. But we do want an A+ certification, and that is just an industry standard. It says, how do you work on a computer? What's a motherboard? What's a hard drive? That kind of stuff. So it's just a way of validating it. Network Plus certification is very similar to A+. It's just in regards to the network. So it's not a requirement, but we do prefer that because everything plugs into a wire or it goes wireless. So network services, this is our network administrators. They're a little bit more advanced in their network skills. So when you see CCNA and CCNP, I don't know if many of you heard, but Cisco is one of the industry leaders. We do not use them. We use HP. It's a rival of theirs, but they've been around so long that they've become kind of the de facto standard, for knowledge. And so we require, they have a CCNA or CCNP preferred, network professional, network associate is what that stands for. System services, MSCE, Microsoft certified engineer, and programmers and stuff, they don't have to know so much Microsoft stuff, but they do know JavaScript, HTML development, all those kind of things are included in there. We have instituted a pay-for certification program in there to incentivize, because we want to kind of we're in education. That's what we want to do, is make sure these people are continually to improve and learn. And so if they get their A+ certification, if they don't already have it, or if they get a Net Plus certification, then we give an extra annual $1,000 or $1,500, depending on what certification they get. That's been in place for years, and it's worked out wonderfully because it does get the ones that are really wanting to learn. It incentivizes them, and then we get a little reward for it.
Hold on, do you have a question?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just curious, do you target candidates for these roles, or is it is there a specific place that you go to find these candidates, or is this the typical posting the job out there? And
we do the typical posting for our technicians. A lot of it we will look at Blinn, because Blinn has a very robust, and we do prefer an associate's degree, and
Okay.
they develop them. Internally, we hire a lot for our upper level ones, the network administrators, system administrators. We probably have one out of the group that hasn't come up through the ranks.
Okay.
Essentially. And that has actually been a good selling point when we're hiring these technicians is,
there's a career path.
there's a career path. And so Yes.
I was just curious.
In two ways that happens. One is, we get them in the door and then we
Yeah.
pay for their certification.
Right.
Give them that, and then they work themselves. They have been able, at least in the past, to work themselves into these jobs through
Nice.
their day-to-day performance and the certifications they've been able to earn with us.
Okay, very good. I know that technology hiring can be very challenging,
Yes,
especially captured markets. So I was just curious how that process has been. So it sounds great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And in the past, on that note, and on past couple of hires, we've hired more for, I mean, yes, they have technical skills, but we've looked more for candidates that have the personality skills. And because we can train, the next line is we develop them 2 to 3 months of shadowing, and then we kind of mentor them with other people, and that's been really successful to us, so, anyway. And then, yeah, training again, industry certifications. If they're not included on the pay for certification program, we try to get it in there, but we do encourage that they get industry certifications. Again, we don't like them to leave, but that is an incentive to where they get the certifications, and if they do go, they've grown while they were here, and they have something on a piece of paper to show people. So, anyway. So, I put this on here. These are our technicians. We are dividing the categories a little bit more. There'll be 3 categories soon. But we have our technician, our lead technician, and this leads into our salary schedules. And why I put that in there is because how it relates to Texas A&M. Other than one of the 6 past technicians we've lost, they've all been to Texas A&M. And we kind of joke about it. We train them up, we get them skilled up, and then they fly away to A&M. So yes. It is a competitive market. Our minimums are pretty close. When we did a study last year, 2 years ago, they looked at the market, and so our minimums are very close to what A&M is, which has been helpful. Our maximums are where we kind of lack at, and so we need to work on that too. But we're working on that with HR and everything else to get that more in line, because we want to make sure that we keep them here as long as we can. And the technicians that we have kept, usually they've bumped up into those professional, I say professional positions. Anyway, administrative positions. So, now our budget trends. So, taking out personnel, this is where we buy all our stuff from. And as you can see, the breakdown there in total, we included the general fund in our instructional materials allotment because we have been able to buy software services and computers in there. And our educational foundation, which has been wonderful for providing devices. Now, if I would have included some of the earlier years in educational foundation, you would have seen that number be a little bit higher for iPads and things like that. We've been able to supplement that with bond, and so a lot of those numbers include, the virtual reality kits and things like that. So the truly innovative stuff that we're trying to do. And Ms. Bennett has been working with us on trying to make sure those whatever we select is, truly innovative. And so that's what those numbers are included in there, because I do want to show that we do include that as part of our technology allotment, planning. Instructional materials, I point out in 2018, there's a little asterisk next to it, because if you look at our general funds, they went down, but we moved things over to instructional materials because our Microsoft licensing, Schoology licensing, that does qualify. And so we're using that bucket of funds to do that. So that's why you see the numbers drop a little bit and spread out.
Let me talk a little bit about instructional materials allotment. A number of years ago, we used to get, the state used to provide textbooks for school districts, and they gave us a technology allotment of a certain amount of dollars per child. The state got, probably 6-8 years ago, got out of the textbook game, and now mandate that the schools buy the instructional materials for their students. They give us some money for that, and that's known as instructional material allotment. They took the technology allotment away and dumped that money in there too. So from the state's point of view, we've got to provide instructional materials and technology through that instructional materials allotment grant or money that we get every 2 years. That money goes up and down depending on which different instructional materials we have to buy. Like if we have to do K through 12 English language arts versus middle school science, and how much that may be. So we do purchase, as you can see, we've used a significant amount of instructional materials allotment for technology and for technology licensing. That whole landscape is changing as well. We used to buy just standalone license. Now we have yearly subscriptions. So as the industry changes, we have to change too with that. So That's just a little bit about IMA. For those of you who've been on the board for a while will remember the old technology allotment, but may not be as familiar with IMA.
So, thank you. And then I also want to point out there the 2015 bond funds. This is just a technology portion of it, and that includes and including devices, servers, our storage area network, lots of upgrades, lots of wireless access points and cabling that you'll see in the further slide. So we were able to utilize a lot of those funds to cover our needs, and so we're appreciative of the bond for the community. If we have any community citizens here, because it is basically used in a wise way, and it does directly affect our kids. So responsibilities, and we mentioned a little bit about the divisions, but we're going to go through each one and what they do, and I like that because other than space heaters, if it plugs in, we probably touch it some way, and it's just the nature of the beast. So that's network services. So what all is included in network services? All of the cabling, all of the stuff that connects all of the computers together. So we have internet access. That's always a fun beast. And later on you'll see in our metrics we're 100% uptime on that. And given the nature of how infused that is into our curriculum, it's got to be up. So we put a lot of resources into making sure that our internet bandwidth and our internet access is always up and always on. Remote access, we left that in there. That is actually starting to decrease because we're moving a lot of our stuff to cloud services. So, they can get into Schoology. The servers for Schoology is not actually located here. It's out in the cloud. We use Google. That is located in the cloud. So we're not dependent on having remote access so much. We do need it for our business operations so that they can log in and get into some secured things that we don't want exposed to the outside world. Dr. Ely has some connections, but other than that, remote access is kind of shrinking, actually, which is good. Internet content filtering, you'll hear us talk about that a lot. Shaq recommendation made some comments about that. We do have to, it's a federal mandate, that we have to comply with SIPA, and we have to filter the internet to make sure that our children aren't looking at pornography, firearms, all kinds of wonderful good stuff that we're constantly having to adapt and change. So that falls in this group. Our systems administration group has a little bit to do with that too, because it's kind of an important thing. They touch both of the areas, but we have to deal with that. Wide area networking, that is essentially the campus connections. So as we go from Pecan Trail to Welborn Middle School, there's fiber that goes in between all those campuses. And I'll show you later on the slide, there's a ring. And so that is included in there. The local area network, so inside the building stuff. We had a wonderful fun thing, College Station Middle School this morning, where somebody plugged in the wrong thing and it took down a wing. And oh, by the way, we're doing testing. Did you know we're doing testing this week?
Somebody told me about that.
Yes, I know. And so Mr. Hadnot called me real quick and said, get over here. So we had to go look at his local area network and get that up and running. So the entire network group was over there because it's kind of important today. Wireless network, which is essentially kind of like the local area network, but there's no wires. We all use our iPads and our phones, and so that falls underneath this group too. Security cameras, we're 580 something different cameras in there, different systems, so that falls in this group, and we maintain that. Audio video systems, every classroom, I say every, 99% of the classrooms have some kind of audio video systems in there. That also includes fine arts. Me and Mr. Harris have a running joke about the football speakers. So that falls underneath our purview as well in network services. So it covers all in there. Communication systems, public address systems. That is no longer just the OPA system. We made sure you point out there that emergency operations is included in there because we've spent a lot of resources, time and effort, money towards making sure that we have a district-wide emergency operations notification system. So it's not just a classroom bells and everything else. And that's been a real, hopefully we'll never have to use it, but it is there so that if Dr. Ely wanted to instigate a lockdown district-wide or per campus, he can do it from here, or the campus can do it themselves. And so you look like you got a question.
Well, but before you go off the slide, I was going to ask about the internet content filtering. Does SIPA, does it give us a prescribed list of things we have to block? or do we have an independent determination of subject matter? I know there's a lot in the news these days about content, meaning, I guess the heart of the question is, do we get into any kind of, say, political content that we're trying to filter, or do we have, okay, the realm of ideas, well, kids can look at it and evaluate it for themselves, but we've got firearms, drugs, and all those things that we block.
Yeah, we do have, it is mandated, and our provider, you know, since it's recorded, I won't say the provider because it gives hackers a little tool to do, but the internet provider we use, we make sure that they meet the federal guidelines of, you know, pornography and everything else. But we do have the control. There's a discussion right now of what kind of social media apps do we need to block, do we not need to block. Last year we had a bullying app that was out there, and we were able to go into the content filter. It was not a federally mandated, but we felt as a district it was important to do that. And so we rely upon, you know, our principals and people like that to tell us, hey, we're having an issue with that. And case in point, if Woburn Middle School is having an issue, then I will go talk to, you know, College Station Middle School and AMCMS and see if they're having the same issues. And then we get together as a committee and determine what enhancements do we want to block. But if we start talking about political speech and things like that, yeah, that gets into a really gray area, and we provide the tools. I don't think I want to be the one starting to legislate, censor, however you want to say it, you know, information.
I don't either.
I don't, yeah.
Thank you.
And the fun thing is that is we'll get away from political, but we always get into the issue of, I had somebody search for the word sex. Well, that's technically not a block thing now, because you could be talking about biology and animals and, you know, whatever. So we'll have that come up every year. Somebody will come up and say, oh, I caught a fourth grader Googling sex, and it came up with words, but it didn't give images and things like that. So I said, well, the filter technically worked how it should work. So, but political speech, everything else, same thing, yes.
And then technically, though, things are only filtered whenever it's over the Wi-Fi. I mean, you can't filter when kids are using their own data.
Oh,
Correct?
yes, correct. If they're using their own phone and they're not on our network. So yeah, so Wi-Fi or district computers, everything like that is filtered. But if some of our children learn to just disconnect from the Wi-Fi and then show somebody this, then
Right.
yes, there's a way to bypass them. So, okay. Did that answer your question, Mr. Harris?
It did. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Telephones.
Telephones. So we do have part of our communication systems. We have telephones. We have a lot of classroom phones, and which is good. I found out a district up the road here does not have classroom phones, which I can't understand how they operate with that, because we like to have public address systems, telephones, and you've got email. So if there's a case, they need, God forbid, an emergency situation, we try to give everybody at least multiple ways of communicating. And like everybody has their cell phone too. So, but handsets in the classrooms are really important to us. Fax machines, voicemail, all of those things, they all follow with network services.
Is there any type of internal, like, alert system, like Code Maroon or something?
We are looking at how to handle it actually in the committee right now. I think we meet again next Friday, this Friday, because Code Maroon, we've got some solutions like that. It's just a matter of who can trigger it, how is it triggered. You know, Mr. Glenwinkle has a way of doing that for the district, and it seems to be working, but can we enhance that? So, you know, we are doing it, but that all ties into everything that we've talked about in here. Okay. Yeah. So, and it's just a good example of when we talk about the white arrow network in the ring, because some people always have questions about this. So it's not identical to where it actually is, but this gets the concept across that all of the schools are connected together. So if between College Hills and Southwood Valley up on top gets cut, the ring stays up, and because it'll self-heal and keep going. So this is done, I want to point out, in partnership with the City of College Station. We, as a school district, do not have the right to put fiber optics up on the pole. We don't have pole attachment rights. You have to be a utility or the city. And so the city they own the actual fiber. We will pay for, like, the River Bend extension. We will pay a portion of that And once we get through, then we turn it over and the city takes control. They take ownership of it, but they also take maintenance control of it and everything else. So it's a very important relationship we have with the city. And, you know, I want to make sure that gets recognized.
So when a squirrel gives its life to chew through a line up on a pole, they will go and take care of that.
Or the guy shooting at the squirrel to get rid of the line. Yes,
Okay, yeah.
yes. So we want to keep redundancy into the network.
Which happens more than you know.
Unfortunately, yes, it does. Or a guy at the library decides to cut a wire. Anyway. When they were doing Larry Ringer,
Construction.
that just happened, and
Cut here.
Can you talk about the capacity?
yeah, okay, yeah, and it's 10 gigabits per second. I know that means the other
Is that a lot?
that's a lot. But we are talking 40 gigabits and 100 gigabits, so that's a whole lot. You get suddenly pushes if you get home access, it's 1 gigabit per second to your home. You know, well, that's a whole lot. And you know, we're running at 10 gigabits per second, and our utilization right now is 6 to 7%. So we have a lot of growth in that ring. So yes, it's a lot, but we, unfortunately, you know, if we build it, they will use it. So we have to constantly keep upgrading. So we will be upgrading to 40 gigs, you know, probably in the next 2 or 3 years of just because of demand. Yes. Yes, it is. You know, I have an interesting story on A&M I can tell you later on about what happened when we opened up bandwidth, and
I can only imagine.
you can only imagine. So, system administrator, these are the server guys. So, applications, servers, everything else, this all falls within them. There are 6 members of this group. And so, like I said, storage area networks, file everything, anything we store, anything we access, it goes through a server somewhere. Every campus has a server that controls what locally goes on. In our data center back here that y'all graciously put bond funds towards, we have a whole rack full of servers. I think a couple of y'all have seen it, but it's all backed up. It's all, you know, secure with battery generators. It's isolated. So all of that information comes into one central location for our student information, our file information, financial information, print services, athletic films, you name it, it's all being stored somewhere on a server, and this group handles it all. They also handle our document management, and that is 2 things, Laserfish, so all of our record storage that we have to do, education records, we have to save all those files somewhere. There's state mandated rules that we have to keep up with. That's all done electronically now. We're trying to get away from keeping paper around just because it takes up a lot of space. It's hard to sort through. So document managers in there. Account management, we have 1,600 different accounts right now between students and professionals and sundry people. So there are a lot of accounts that have to be managed, and so they all handle that too, in addition to email and services.
And I don't know if this is the time to ask or later, but is this the group that handles data security, or can you talk a little bit about that?
It's shared. I've got another side we kind of a little talk about. It's handled between the systems group and the network group because it's all encompassing. So yeah, we can go ahead and talk about it if you want to talk about it here. So
I'll defer to you whenever you think is best. So
yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it now.
okay.
So yeah, one of the issues that we have is the whole cybersecurity threat, and you know, making sure that the data is safe and secure. Malware attacks, things like that. It's all these wonderful things that people are trying to get our data. I heard a number of $350 per student is what a good clean credit is going for on the black market right now. So we have 13,600 right now going in. So they're constantly going to attack to try to get us. So we've put filters in place. We've put blocks in place. We are firewall, which we'll talk about in another slide. You know, we block the known, you know, Yugoslavia, you know, those areas we don't allow traffic to go through. So we keep those out. We just block them. Now the smart ones are able to bounce around and they'll hijack a computer somewhere else in, you know, Boston, and they'll get around that way. So we have rules in place on that. We do look at traffic. We look at logs. We are actually actively pursuing a solution that's going to look at all of these logs from servers, from our switches, from whatever, and automate the process, because right now it is a human being looking through, the systems guy, he will look through and see if he sees anything weird. The network guy will look at the logs and see if they're seeing anything weird, but that requires a person laying eyes on it. So there is a big push to automate all of that, and we're right there with them so that alerts can happen. One of them scared me just to make me worried. He said, "So what happens on spring break when nobody's around and I'm not here?"
Mm.
So I said, "Well, you just told me that you're not ever going to be not around, so there you go." So
Vacation denied.
vacation denied. So yeah, we're constantly working at that. That is what keeps me up at night. If you really want to know it, is cybersecurity and the impending attacks. They are also constantly trying to get over our healthcare records and things like that in HR. That is a big area. So we try to secure, we try to encrypt as much as possible, and the big thing, and it's a slide down further, we try to educate our users.
Yeah, there's the whole phishing aspect of it too. We've gotten a number of different emails, and we've seen other school districts in other parts of the country fall victim to phishing schemes. People impersonating somebody else and asking for this information, or a rerouting of a wire transfer. And we certainly get that information out to our employees all the time to make sure that we're being diligent about. Dr. Lee's not going to be asking you to make a wire transfer. That's just
Yeah.
somebody impersonating.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. So
Yeah. And we didn't think. Exactly.
Have there been any successful attacks?
Oh, no, not successful. No, knock on wood. We've been very, very, very lucky. No, I take it back. We did have one malware attack where, they basically encrypt your files. It was on a very small scale. It affected, I think it was a teacher in Rock Prairie. Again, she clicked on the wrong attachment in an email and started it. And that was not a major disruption because she lost her print center files from 10 years ago of children's work. So luckily, on our storage area network, we had a backup. And so we were able to just, delete the old files, restore the new files, and go. So that, yes, I do apologize. We did have one attack. We did have one attempt, because lately, those of you in the construction business, there's lots of money that gets transferred back and forth. And we had a purchasing director, not purchasing director, one of our purchasing people get emailed on a phishing scam, and they were clever. They knew exactly who our general contractor was. They knew who the woman was that would be requesting, payment. And luckily, because we've trained, she knew to look at the email address, and it was, instead of .com, it was .co. So she asked the question, which one are you, and to get to see if this was real or not. And the person, as soon as she made the comment that, yeah, we're about to make our next payment for River Bend for $1.3 million. And then all of a sudden, you would not believe how many emails she was getting from this guy when he heard $1.3 million was at stake. But she knew what she did. She analyzed it, and within 2 emails, she said, I'm tired of this guy, because no law had technically been broken. But she said, okay, I'm turning this over to the Houston Federal Bureau of Investigation. If you have any more comments, please contact this, and gave an agent's name or whatever. Cease and desist. We never heard from the guy again. But yeah, so it's a lot of it has to do with making sure our people are trained correctly. Yeah.
We get them in PTOs also. I just got one over spring break. It was, supposedly came from one of my PTO presidents asking me to go purchase some gift cards from an online. Yeah, and I was like, oh man,
And
how'd they get us?
how'd they get us? Yes, and this is part of, and then we'll skip over it when we get to it. But this is one of the things that Ms. Ryan has been working on, is our digital citizenship, because so many of our students, they need to be aware of, and faculty and staff too, of what these emails are doing, or I'm on Facebook or whatever, and here's a quiz you go fill out. Well, they're gathering information on you. It's not they just made a quiz just for fun. And so we're actively trying to teach our children, why they're asking this question, because they think it's cute and they don't realize there's nefarious reasons behind there. And so that's one of the reasons we're doing our digital citizenship program, is to educate our children. It's the new marketplace. So, okay. Also included in here, mobile device management. You will see we have a lot of iPads. We're increasing a lot of netbooks/laptops. Those all have to be managed and everything else. So system administration takes care of that as well for us. Computer imaging systems. I put that in there just so that you are aware, when you get your computer from us, we take an image. It's already got, our standard applications on there and everything else. So they're not sitting there going through I would say CDs, I'm dating myself, but they're not downloading files and programming it. But that's all controlled by our systems administrator. So they develop with the images with our technicians, and then they take care of the campuses and put it out there. Antivirus, obviously, is important. And now we're looking at the next generation antivirus too, which is always fun. And design, testing, integration of our hardware and software. So we want to make sure whatever we're putting out there meets our criteria, so we're not putting out there stuff that we're going to have to go, oh, within a year we got to rip it out because it didn't work. So again, trying to make sure we're using the taxpayers' money wisely.
You've got to manage everything we print.
Unfortunately, yes, we do.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yes, oh, I'm glad, yeah, the second one up there. So we just went through the whole image processing or project management, I say image management, document management, RFP process. And so everything that's printed, that comes through, we manage it, and we are trying to constrain, not constrain, make our
Be as
users
efficient as possible.
more efficient
with our resources.
So little pop-ups that'll pop up on the screen saying, hey, did you really want to print this in color? Because black and white might cost us half a penny, color may cost us 10 cents. So, and a lot of times when they print it, they'll have a little hyperlink that's in blue, well, that counts as color. So we're working on the print document management system to constantly make sure we're doing the wise choice.
Quick question on the antivirus. You had said that we use HP. I got two questions. One, is it true or false that Apple is that you can't get more viruses and stuff with it? And two, when I asked a question about Apple, where are other school districts, this might be part of your presentations, where are they in comparison to Apple products and regular HP products and stuff like that?
Well, we're a Microsoft district, that was decided 10 years ago to be Microsoft. Tools and everything else were designed around it. Yes, Apple, if you look at statistically, they receive there's less viruses written to attack Apple products. But that's to say, are there none out there? No. They've realized real quick that, you can spread your malware, your whatever on, Apple's as well as you can do on Microsoft's. So that's starting to come out there. I know Brian uses a lot of Apple's, and, that's just the direction their district has made, and we've always stayed with Microsoft. But yes, there are antiviruses of both. There's antiviruses now being written for phones on it. So unfortunately, if they're not running an antivirus on Macintoshes, then they probably need to, because it's coming. And we're trying to catch as much as we can, in the network before it even hits the devices, but still they sneaks through. So does that kind of answer?
Yeah. I was a product of a school district that, I'm not going to say it was, but it was in the 80s, that started with Apple.
Mm-hmm. And I was with you too.
TVs.
Yes, and they still are, not as prone to viruses, but unfortunately, the programmers that write these things are getting creative, and they learn to attack it either way. So I do want to point custom program development, because we do have 2 programmers in there. We are technically going through a process right now of our onboarding, and we use PowerSchool, which is eSchool, eFinance, those applications, and our Talent Ed, which is the application management. Well, we have those products out there, but nothing really, they don't talk nicely together. So we are having to do a custom program development just to make that process, so that as a principal, when somebody is hired or when they're not hired, or where that in the process, you get notifications. So we are constantly, my team is constantly trying to figure out, what we need at the school and how to make that work better. So that's the custom program development team. And Success 24/7, that's a big push on a learning tool, and that was all written in-house. So we do a lot of stuff. When we see there's a need, we sometimes just have to write it ourselves to make that need fit. So covered a lot of this on security earlier, but I wanted to point out, these are, and the back end of everything that you kind of see, this is what, we get excited about, because it's back there in the closets, nobody else sees about it, and they don't really care. So you got your internet gateway, which is a router, so that comes in from the big cloud, the world out there. And so there's a switch that's involved, and I put in there DMZ applications, so that's demilitarized zones. So we do have some applications that are running out in the public space, but those were included in there. I also wanted to put in there, because if you see there's asterisks next to Let me use Mike's little tool. Right here, next to public wireless devices. So that's always fun because if they're hooked to our network, it has to go through our content filter over here. But it is technically, they're not trusted because we don't know what kind of antivirus software they're running on the machine and everything else. So I wanted to make sure you know that yes, the public, anything connected to public is still going through our filter, still going through our firewall, but they're actually in the demilitarized zone. We kind of do a U-turn in there. So we have to meet our state regulations, federal regulations, but they are in there. I didn't want people to look at the slide and go, what are you doing? So these little areas down here, if you see, it looks like laptops and whatever, just think of that as a campus. So all of the campus connect in to a central network switch over here. Again, it's all in a ring, but it connects to the network switch and then it goes through the filter and everything else. So we take care of all of that from a security standpoint, and that takes care of antivirus, malware, phishing, virtual private networks and virtual LANs. How many of you have, and this is an issue that's creeping up, is virtual private network. Think of, you got a big pipe, and I want to make, that's our network, and I want to make a little small pipe in there that bypasses everything. So a virtual private network is wonderful where you're sitting at the coffee shop, you log in via a VPN client on your machine, and then you basically become
Like at your desk.
like at your desk, yes. And nobody else in the coffee shop can see what you're doing because you're tunneling in through and nobody sees what's going on. The problem that we're having, and this is nationwide, is students are getting a hold of this and they know how to run their own little virtual private network clients. And it started off with, oh, I wanted to be able to watch Netflix because I can't get this because that show is based off of, you know, England, so they won't show it in the United States. But so they run a VPN. They look like they're coming out of England so they can watch Netflix. Well, these individuals have figured out, well, then if I want to tunnel around our content filter and our firewall and everything else, this is how we do it. We create a little private network inside a network and it can tunnel through. So we are constantly dealing with that issue. So yeah, and they can do a whole lot.
We're creating smarter kids.
We're creating smarter kids. And, you know, tongue in cheek, I always say, you know, man, life would be easy if we had dumb kids, but College Station ISD has a lot of smart children, you know, and they constantly know how to push the edge. Success. Exactly. So if you start hearing more conversations outside world and inside world, virtual private networks or VPNs, they're an issue. Our firewall can look at it, our content filter can look at it, but what it takes is a bigger machine because we essentially have to tear apart, you know, think of it as an envelope. We have to look at every envelope, look inside, see what's in there, and then put it back together and send it out. So if you want that to happen fast, you need more machines, or more power, horsepower to do it. So we're fighting that fight. Private and public addressing, that is another way we do things. So, you know, when you go home and you hook into your wireless router or whatever, you're using a private addressing scheme. So it cannot be routed over the public internet. So 10.192. You know, all these numbers. And that's just a way of making sure that, you know, the traffic stays separate. It's just another means we use. Shared drives, I point out there, we do have shared drives. We have teacher drives. We have, you know, we used to have scratch drives. So everybody in the 5th grade, 6th grade would have one shared drive that they all could use. We got rid of that. They still have it, but they have their individual accounts too, because that was a perfect way to spread viruses, malware, things like that. But it was also a way to, if I didn't like Johnny, I could go delete it, and you know his project just disappeared. And it wasn't really disappeared, but it took a phone call for us to go figure out what happened and things like that. So we also cover operating system updates and patches. So I don't know if you do it at home. Please do. That'll save you a lot of headaches. Because as they release them, you know, you need to update because there's a reason they release them. We do wait. We don't automatically do it every night. We will try to wait and give 30 days to, at the worst end, to make sure everything's right. Because unfortunately, sometimes we will do a Microsoft update and that will break something on one of our software applications because Adobe hasn't updated something. So, but again, all of these things revolve around our security services, and both network and security systems administrators are all involved in all of this. So, computer services, or what I call management information system. This is the Jackie Janashek world. So, all of our student data, all of our financial data, state, federal reporting, it all goes into this group, and they do a lot of data. I mean, a whole lot of that. There were 13,600 kids plus all of the past and employees and future employees and whoever else you may think of. So, and we have lots of state and federal recording. The other thing I'll point out there is this group, as you get involved into, we do Schoology. Well, we need to get somehow all of these students into Schoology. We need to make sure that they're right in the classes. So the MIS group works with making sure that export is correct. And so that involves child nutrition, SPED, athletics. You pretty much name it, it's being touched somehow by this group. So I want to just list, that's just an example of some of the stuff we do. So mandated reports, these are the things that we just have to do. Federal government, state government, whoever it is says we have to do it. So I just want to let you know that, we are doing all of these reports. We are making sure that they're on our radar. There are some other ones that aren't listed on here, but, we are very diligent in making sure that we keep us out of trouble.
Some of them we have to do daily.
Yes. Yeah. So, and a lot of it has to do with financial stuff too, daily attendance and everything else. So. And these are the guys that really do all the work. They are the ones that are in front of the teachers. They're the ones, walking up and down the halls. And so I can't say enough about the quality of this group here right now. So everything you can talk about, computers, projectors, smart boards, if it plugs in, they probably touch it. And I also want to point out that teacher provided accessories. Now, it's not part of our mandate, I guess you would say, to take care of if a teacher got something from Christmas that does this wonderful whiz-bang thing, that we haven't certified. We don't know if it works for sure or not. But I've told our people, go ahead when you're out there, look at it. If it's not going to break something, and if it really is a tool that they're going to use, go ahead and add it in there. I know some of our fellow districts that I deal with, they're just, no, if it's not an authorized device, it's not going on, period, end of story. I guess I've been a little bit lenient on that, but I think it helps with our customer service, and they seem to do appreciative of it. So, and also when they come up with something new, it may really work, wonderfully. And then what'll happen is if it really is a good tool, then it'll spread throughout the campus. And like a Cricut, one of those stamping cutting machines, that we have some of those. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, when
It's
you
a
do your
crafting machine.
scrapbooking, Mike.
When you do your scrapbooking, and so
It must be something new for scrapbook.
yeah, or you would know about it, yes, sir. Yeah, or they'll come with
Ladybugs?
with document cameras. There's this ball that they throw around. It's got a little
That's what I
microphone
was just
into it.
going to talk about was the ball.
The ball,
That
and
was really cool.
that was one. I think it really came from a teacher who got it from somebody. Said, "Here, this is wonderful." So and what they do is when they're, I guess I'm stealing your thunder. Go ahead.
I mean, it was part of Grant Showcase for Education Foundation. And it was a ball. I mean, it's just a ball, and it has a speaker in it. So it's just like is it Red Cat? Is that
The Red Cat is yes.
So it goes through the Red Cat. So the Red Cat is like a microphone that the teachers can wear, and so that their voice is projected, right? And so it goes through the same system, but it's a ball with the same speaker, so the kids toss it around, or the teacher tosses it to the kid, and so
So they can speak and be
so they
heard
can
more clearly
speak
by
and
everybody.
be heard, and they're excited. It's just a different way. We saw it in a first grade classroom, I think, and it was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, we would have never thought about this, but our teachers are, our best asset.
It's a microphone.
And it helps with the collaborative sharing, and they'll throw it away. Okay, Johnny, your time to talk. And it's tied into our, audio enhancement systems, and so, but the kids love it, and it gets the little student that will never talk, because they're shy or whatever. They think it's cool, and so they get the ball and they share, and
I'm assuming it's
works.
fuzzy and soft.
it's rubbery.
Or could a lab go get it?
It's a red ball.
It might help with board meetings. Yes, we could throw it around, and if you don't have the ball, you can't talk.
Sorry.
Well,
Okay.
so that's examples. Yeah, because that involves drivers that have to be on a machine, and it could potentially mess up something else. And so we did go through our whole testing vetting process. But I want our guys to be seen as again, when they walk out of that classroom, the teacher's appreciative of it. You're a value to us. So software installation maintenance. So there's not a lot on the screen, but they do a whole lot. They're the ones that like I said, they're face to face with the teachers and the classroom of 20-something little kids looking at them going, why is this not working? So kind of a high pressure job. So, and to go in that, this is how much they're covering. So if we look at campuses, there's 8,618 computers district wide. So 1,100 smart boards, 1,300 projectors. And so it's a substantial number of equipment that they're having to cover. 4,700 iPads out there. And I point all of that out there to say that we still need more. So, but our technicians are supporting all of this. So, and to keep it running on a daily basis. So I'm really proud of that. Printers, copiers, back to our print management. There's 55 copiers, 330 plus printers. And those are the ones that we know about that they didn't sneak in. Just saying. But we don't pay for those, and we don't pay for supplies on those. So that's a different story. Custom web applications, this goes back to our programming people. There's 10. It's actually probably closer to 15 right now because they're constantly writing stuff that, oh, surprise, we needed this and we developed it. So servers, physical and virtual. Very rarely do we have a server running on one box. We virtualize it because processors, hard drives, everything else is fast enough now, so it's all virtualized. So we can run 5 or 6 servers on one physical box, and that's just an industry trend. And it's been able to save us a lot of space and a lot of resources, and so we're very appreciative that that system works as well as it does. So storage area networks, big file storage areas, a bunch of hard drives stacked all together. We have 5 of those district-wide. One of them is our backup, one of them is our backup, and then we have other applications that all use those. And then we have a document management system and a mobile device management system to try to control all of these things.
Okay, I have a question, and I'm going to ask it in 2 different ways. The first on the custom web applications, is there any way to commercialize that? And I'll ask it a different way. Could we maybe share what we've been able to develop with, say, smaller districts that don't have the same resources we do but have the same problems? And I mean, I know we're clearly not in the business of making money, but if we have guys who are, girls, developing applications that have value and solve real world problems, is there a way that we can capitalize on that?
Yeah. I mentioned our computer information or computer services group was at a Power School conference right now. And actually one of our guys, he's been working on a whole, position control directory system to extract this information and put it into something. What it's essentially trying to do is, I'm a principal and I think I have a position open. I'm not sure how many open positions are filled, closed, or whatever. So I want a good way to go and look at all of that without having to go through Power School, eSchool, eFinance in this case, and try to figure it out, or calling Mr. Martindale and saying, hey, do I have a slot open? So he is actually developing that, and one of the things he was going to talk about in the user groups is if there was a small campus or small district that may be looking at something, he wanted to see what kind of need there was out there, so then maybe he could share his information with them, not for financial gain, but just for notoriety of saying, hey, we've suffered through this, and could we help you out? So yeah, so we are looking at that. Now, if we could do it for financial gain.
Right. If there's
Most
an
of these-
opportunity to be efficient with our taxpayer resources, we would welcome that as well.
Most of these are talking with different third-party software applications that don't talk to each other very well. So it is kind of dependent on what is your data management software that you have, what is the management tracking software that you have, and so the different combinations that we have and the needs that we have as a system necessitate these workarounds that we're working on. So I don't know that it's like we've invented something great that could be commercially viable to a number of other districts. It would have to be kind of special situations for most of what we've done so far.
So yes. So,
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, and again, this is one screen. This is on the network side, and I want you to see how many switches, UPSs, which is our battery backup system. So if the commercial power, the city shuts the power off for whatever reason, they replace a pole, which that happened at College Station Middle School this summer. But if they do something like that, our battery backup systems will keep everything running. And so there's 97 of those. I wanted to point out the access points because we've been putting a lot of time and resources into that. So 1,200 plus devices is what we were supporting on a daily basis. So, and that number is, it was,
12,000?
I mean, 12,000, I said 1,200, 12,000. But that number is, it was 7,000 3 years ago. So you can see the exponential growth that we're occurring. And that's not only, that's not our devices, that's mostly the student bringing their own devices. So we have to support that. You know, we want them to use their devices on our network so that they go through our filter and everything else, but that's the demand being placed upon us. So we're right now at 1,600 plus access points. We've been putting a lot of resources into that. In the past 3 years, that's 937 devices that we've added. Now, you take out about 150 of those would be Warburn Middle School and
Contrail.
Pecan Trail. So that's a lot of upgrades we've been doing in our campuses. So at a typical elementary school, 3 years ago, we would have one access point in the first grade wing and one access point in the second grade wing and everything else. So what we've gone in and done, because the demand is there, we've added devices. So we had good coverage, we didn't have a good capacity. And so now we're adding capacity. So now in elementary school wing, you will have 3, sometimes 4 devices, depending on how it works. Intermediate schools and above, our ratio is 1 access point per classroom. So we have, and are drastically, not drastically, as fast as we can put it, we're putting more access points out there because we need more coverage. And we are also upgrading devices. So the old 105 system, you know, that maybe would handle 20 devices connected to it, well, those are going away as fast as we can, and we're upgrading with 215s, 315s, 515s, the latest and greatest, so we can get more devices, more capacity. So we're constantly increasing that. I just want to make sure that that's pointed out so everybody knows that, yes, we are aggressively attacking that. Telephones, we have 2,041 telephones district-wide, so every classroom has a phone, and obviously faculty, staff, they all have, in administration, have phones and stuff like that too. So that's a lot of devices we're handling. 18 different PBXs, so that's the phone system on the campus. Now they're all tied together. So if we lose connectivity for whatever reason, you know, that phone system will stay running on its own and they can still communicate inside. The PA system, also wanted to point it out, 1,850 devices. So there's 18 systems. Each campus has their own system. Again, redundancy. If something fails, that campus can still do announcements and everything else they need to. But they're all intertwined together. But there are 1,800 devices district-wide tied to that. And then security, you're maybe asking, because somebody asked me, why is there 18 systems on the PA and 19 systems on the cameras? Well, we have a system here. We don't have a PA system here, but we have a camera system here. So 585 cameras. And that's primarily, if you go into a school, you'll look at it, most of them are entrances and exits. There's cameras in there. We do not put them in classrooms unless there are a special circumstance, like a SPED classroom that requests it. That's another topic we deal with. But we try to keep out of classrooms for legal reasons. FERPA, one of the reasons. And our big areas like gymnasiums, cafeterias, and things like that have cameras. So I am constantly asked to put more in. You know, and we are trying to maximize where we put them and how we put them and where we put them in locations, but, you know, still, it's a lot of cameras.
What kind of life do those have? And I guess one of the other things is when we were talking computers, how often do we replace those?
Computers, there's a slide later on we talk about it. It's 5 years, mostly on computers and depending on what category. But on the camera systems, yeah, there's not a lot of change in them. Now, I will tell you that they're constantly increasing the density. So, you know, what used to be a 2 megapixel is now a 5 megapixel for the same price. So we are constantly upgrading those two to get better coverage in those areas that we need higher resolution. But we've had some of these cameras in place for, well, College Station High School is 7 years.
It opened up in 2012.
2012, and some of those cameras are still doing what they need to do. Like I said, there's not a lot of stuff in there to break, and so, you know, we anticipate a 5 to 7 year life cycle of turning these things over, and, you know, unless they fail or if there's need, we just let them run. And each camera system goes back to a server that collects all of that information, and those I'm targeting as a 5 year lifespan too. They're not a Microsoft Windows based; they are a Linux based, homegrown Samsung. I just said a manufacturer, but anyway, the Samsung unit, and we're estimating 5 to 7 years on that. 5 is what we've been seeing, and like I said, College Station High School, we replaced the back end. We to make sure this system is all integrated together. They're all the same manufacturer. So we took the old system out of College Station High School, but left the cameras because they're interchangeable. So, anyway.
I'm gonna jump in here real quick, just be cognizant of time. We're about 12:06, we're a little bit past halfway. Are we about through this section? or-
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right, excellent, thank you.
So,
I just have a quick question on the cameras. Who manages the requests for if someone needs to view camera footage?
So it depends on what it is. If it's something that happens on a bus, then that's going to be handled by transportation
Okay.
and by the campus, and most of that is at the campus level. Something alleged happened in the cafeteria, so it'll be the assistant principal who will be reviewing that information.
Okay, thank you.
I very rarely get looked into footage unless they want me to mask stuff. So yeah, we rely upon the principals and the assistant principals to do majority of the work. So, okay. So I'm just gonna blow over miscellaneous. Help desk, we do research a lot of hardware and software, and construction and renovation. That takes a lot of my time, of making sure these new schools are wired correctly and they have cameras and stuff in the right place. So instructional technology. So we mentioned the campus technology facilitators. Those are the ones that receive the stipend. So when we talk about this, we're talking about the Stephanie, Shannon, Julie group and all of the CTFs at the campuses. So basically integration of technology into curriculum. That's what they do, and they're wonderful to do all of that. But, Ms. Ryan has also been key in integrating it into the schools. So she is actively training people. Shannon's more of the back end, the big systems picture. But Stephanie is out there actually getting involved in the schools and working with the teachers. So school messenger, district-wide communications, I mean, everybody have used those, or hopefully not received a lot of them, but we do use those for notifications. Schoology, you've all heard about that. That falls in instructional technology. They take care of all of that. Professional learning. So we need to train our teachers on how to do stuff. And so they're developing constantly, what's the next best thing and what's going to make sure our teachers are trained on what they need to be trained on. So blended year-round curriculum. Miss Ryan is constantly, she's over in all of the curriculum instruction meetings to make sure that whatever is going on in curriculum instruction we're tied at the hip. So we know what they know what we're doing, so we're tied together. That being said, Schoology.
I did have one question. So the campus, I can't ever remember what campus technology facilitators, CTF, yes. So do they teach a full load? And then they also, they get the stipend, but they teach a full load plus help out with integrating into the curriculum?
Yes, they get a class off, class period off?
No.
That's different every campus, okay. Yeah, so they really are, hardworking people, yes. So, okay. So our Learning Management Center, Schoology, which, I love going out in the public because I hear lots of parents talking about how wonderful it is, and I'm actually starting to hear kids talk about how wonderful it is too. So I think we're satisfying both our needs. That is basically been Miss Ryan's world, and she's been pushing that. She's our advocate for it. I'm very pleased to say that the success we have is directly related to how hard she's pushed and how hard she's worked on that. There's other people too, but and it doesn't hurt that she's right here behind me. So anyway, but that gives a communication, portal for everybody. We've got now classes in there. We've got year at a glance. We've got, all kinds of information in there. We're actually starting to use it now internally for administration and departments to start using their trainings and, getting information out too. So it's not only just for the campuses, it's actually for administration as well. Nearpod, that's where our digital citizenship I mentioned earlier we needed to discuss and make sure both parents, students, everybody is trained on what it means to be a good digital citizen. That's all involved there. She's working on aligning our curriculum and blended support. So I'm going real fast. Google Apps for Education, that's all falls in there. Who Knew It? I think some of y'all have got to experience a training by Ms. Ryan on Who Knew It. But that is, again, making sure our teachers have the training and they have the resources to learn how to do all of this stuff we're pushing at them. And integration with Schoology and Mizuni. Mizuni, I guess a lot of you, most of y'all know what it is. But that's our data warehouse of gathering all this information on our students all in one port. And Shannon is doing a gangbuster job of not only getting that together for administrators, but we've rolled it out to teachers too. So now they can get a fuller, better, clearer picture of our students. And then Clever Portal, you'll see that rolling out too. It's single sign-on. So all of our applications now, the teachers can log into it our students can log into it in one place, and they don't have to worry about 10 different passwords. It's all in one thing. With that, we got a break.
Ready?
What it intended to do was bring in one of our wonderful teachers. Ms. Hawkins is over at AMCHS, and she is our math department extraordinaire, I guess I would say.
Proud College Station ISD graduate.
Yes. And so she has been, all of the stuff we've been talking about, devices and everything else, she is wonderful in integrating it and utilizing it and capitalizing on it. So we thought she'd be wonderful to bring her in here and actually show you how this stuff works. So intentionally, if you get asked by somebody in the public at the grocery store or whatever, you can say, yes, this is why we're investing in wireless. This is why we're investing in devices. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Hawkins, and it's all you.
Thank you. So my name, again, Miss Hawkins. I'm talking to you about mobile teaching. So this year, our math department, which contains 16 math teachers at A&M Consolidated, switched to iPads and Apple Pencils instead of a smart board, or we used to have symposiums where you would have to stand kind of at a podium and write and teach, and you could kind of point at the board, but you were stuck like over here on this computer. And the beautiful thing about the iPads this year is that I can be wherever I need to be, and all of our math department is doing the exact same thing. So our classes look a little different this year than they did in years past. So when I was asked to give this presentation the first time, I asked our teachers, what are some changes you've seen specifically because of the iPad? Not just something you might have changed in your class, but just because we went to iPads this year, what are some things you've seen differently? So I highlighted some key things, but the first teacher said, loved being able to walk around the room. There are some kids that they just need that presence of an adult, and you kind of figure out who those are within the first week.
It's that guy right there.
Stand behind him a lot. So there are kids you learn very quickly that they need somebody kind of assisting them a little more than some other students. And so once you learn who those kids are, I don't have to have a seating chart because I can be wherever I need to be and handle those issues immediately. Again, mobile classroom, some kids need the proximity of a teacher. That is from a freshman teacher. Myself and this teacher teach freshmen, and a lot of them are very squirrely, and they all want to be the class clown because it's their first year and they're going to redefine themselves. And so the proximity of the teacher is good for making sure that they aren't the class clown at the wrong times. The third one with the 1, 2, 3, 4s right here is from a teacher who is avidly not a fan of technology. But within a year, actually less than a year, she has learned to love the iPad. She loves the teacher mobility. She loves being able to hand it off to a student and let them be accountable for doing some work in the classroom. So instead of the kids taking 5 minutes to get up to the board, goofing around in front of the class, trying to find the time to sit back down now, tripping over everybody, punching this person and hitting this person, I can just hand you the iPad and expect you to do something. So that helps not only with engagement of the kids being, oh, my peer is doing this and not my teacher, let me listen. But also with accountability of the kids knowing at any time, I might just say, you're doing the next one, and they're like, oh, okay, doing the next one. I actually did a review a couple weeks ago, and I asked, hey, would you mind working number 1? And the kid said, can I write it on the iPad? I said, yeah, sure, go ahead. And then all of a sudden, all these low-level sophomores who hate math are all jumping out of their seats to do the review to get a chance to write on the iPad. So it's changing the way that kids are participating in class too. There are various applications that we're asked to complete, like taking attendance, that sort of thing that you can do from the iPad without being tied to the computer. So making your classroom completely mobile, and she says it feels liberating. In the peak, the second bullet was one I didn't really think about because it's kind of something we do naturally now that we're mobile teaching. But in math, a lot of the issues that kids have on a test started from when they first took those notes, and they've made the same mistakes, and they haven't caught it, we haven't caught it, and then they get to the test, and they're still making the same mistakes. Whereas now, when we're teaching and we're able to move around the room, I can see immediately if you're messing up on number 1 and fix it here before you've taken notes and completed your assignment and the review and the test with all the wrong answers. I can catch it now so that you can fix it before it becomes a habit and before it's a problem. So being able to fix some issues that students have, because I can see what issues students are making.
even if I make a general statement, oh, make sure on this problem that you don't blank, because I might have just seen it, but I'm not going to call the kid out. But now I can make sure I've covered that issue without anybody feeling embarrassed about it. So yeah, kind of the same thing down at the bottom. Being able to pull up videos. Maybe there's something we're talking about in calculus about water dripping from the water fountain tower, because that's always the example. And we can pull up a video of water coming out of the water tower and see how this is real life. So now let's apply it. So we can pull up those videos and play sound and stuff like that from the iPad as well. So while you were out, since I am your lunch entertainment, I did drop off a little small math problem for you. So I wanted you to see what it would be like to be a student in our classroom. Now, unfortunately, our students don't just get to work one problem a day, but this will give you kind of a feel for it if you would like to follow along. It's on a little slip of paper in front of you, but I know you're eating, so it's okay if you don't. So if I were teaching this problem, I would say, okay, remember we start out by boxing our variable, so go ahead and box your variable. And as you're boxing your variable, I'm walking around to make sure you're doing what I've asked. I might have to say like, hey, make sure you're doing your problem. I didn't give you a problem, but just to show you, I could say, hey, make sure you're doing that. I could also maybe make sure, hey, make sure you box the entire part with your variable for the first one. And maybe I can quietly point that out to her. With 8 people all sitting around facing each other, you're a lot more likely to hear what I'm saying. But in a class of 22, 25, they have no idea that I just corrected you, and everyone's moving on, and now we fixed your problem before you made it a habit. And so then I would say, all right, we're going to add 4 to both sides, so I can walk around the room. I'm making sure people are paying attention. Maybe I've noticed that our gentleman over here has finished, and I can say, go ahead and start on your homework, so I can differentiate based on where my students are. I also know he's working ahead, so I'm not going to call on him and embarrass him because I know what he's doing, and we have that engagement right there of him being able to move on to what he needs. I could also maybe, like if our students, we're talking about devices, sometimes devices are distracting for our students, unfortunately. And so kids who think that I'm not watching, I can just do a gentle little tap on the desk. I didn't say anything. He knows exactly what he should be doing, that kind of thing. A lot of our students, I don't have to say anything to them. I just do a little tap on the desk and they immediately focus back in without me having to deal with it. It also cuts out on the like, I'm stuck over here and you have a question and now I have to pause my lesson to walk all the way over here to see that yes, you had the right answer, and now I'm walking I can be wherever I need to, and I can continue my lesson talking and yes, yeah, you had the right answer. And so for the next part, and so it's very seamless teaching. We can get through stuff a little bit faster without all the distractions that typically come with teachers being tied to a specific area. And so if we were to finish this, I might be walking around the room, making sure that everyone's with me. Maybe I walk around and I see everyone's already solved the problem, and I'm like, okay, we all got 7, let's move on to the next one. Or I've noticed like, oh wow, we still haven't written anything. I'm gonna make sure I come back over here when we
You're
start.
having problems, Quinn.
Quinn's having flashbacks.
This feels normal.
So I would make a mental
much
note
every
for
night.
myself that when we work on the assignment, I'm gonna go back and say, what questions do you have? Do you want to work another one? So I can differentiate and individualize for my students based on what I'm seeing walking around the room. And I have a sense of where my students are before we've even gotten to the assignment or the test or anything like that. Another cool thing about this app specifically is that we can color code. And so I was actually just using this today. We had a problem that needed 5 steps, color coded all 5 steps. And my students will say, Miss, on the pink, what happened on the pink? And I'm like, you mean the dividing? Yeah, the pink. Okay, the dividing. So they're able to ask their questions in a way that both of us understand. And for our lower learners who need to see those different steps laid out, they can see the different colors that show up very well on our screens and see the different steps in between there or ask their questions based on that. So when I did this the first time, I made my participants participate a little bit more. So what we're going to do very quickly, and it's not going to take a lot of time, I promise, is that game where like everyone adds a word to a sentence just so you can see what it's like to write on the iPad and see how easy it is. Because if you were a student, I might give you the iPad and make you write on it. And just to show you, you can put your hand down just like this is a piece of paper and write whatever you want as though this were a paper and pencil. And you can put it down on the desk to write on it. So if you wouldn't mind, since we're about to get lunch, starting us off, just one word and pass it along, please. Any word you want. Nope, any word you want.
So we're writing a sentence? Yes, ma'am. Okay, so
Oh.
What do you think? Pretty easy to write?
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like paper. It does. Yeah. Those Apple pencils make a huge difference. Like, right on it.
Golly, it's taking a wrong turn.
Oh, I get to be last? No, you get to do it too.
Yeah, this is being videotaped. Greatest disappointment. Now we're gonna play the adjective game.
See, I don't know if y'all noticed how engaged you all are about what the next person's gonna write because you're waiting to see.
God, we are kicking the can down the field. Yeah.
I know. Can there be another word between?
Ivan Trophy.
I was gonna put beloved, but I
Come on. Most favorite.
And you can see, thanks to our technology and thankfully the Wi-Fi updates that happened this year, that
Period.
things are
There you
happening
go.
in real time, very quickly, seamlessly
There you go.
almost.
I'm passing it back.
Yeah, there you go.
So, any questions? Sounds pretty much it.
Yeah.
And AMCMS. Oh, sorry. I don't know if you know. I don't know if you talked to the math teachers at AMCMS, but they all just did a spring PTO grant
Oh yeah.
for all of them, so they can start using them in their classrooms as well.
Yeah,
what
and
she's
that's
doing.
what I've been doing this for a couple of years with my own personal devices. So I was grateful last year Miss Elder bought them at the end of the year with like a little bit of extra money for the math department, and then the science department used an education foundation grant to ask for the same thing. So like y'all are saying, it's spreading throughout the school because teachers are seeing the benefit of it and the reasons behind why we're so excited about it.
what other campuses are, you may not, I don't know which question, what other campuses are utilizing this technology?
We're talking about AMCMS is doing it. It's pockets. So
Okay.
I think they're doing some at College Station High School. Warburn Middle School, I think, is doing something similar to that. But it's all about the interactivity and mobility.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's all of the stuff we talked about prior to it. Here's the result, you know. So we're taking care of our students in a better way of educating them.
So this is less about a district standard and more about autonomy for teachers to teach in the best way they deem possible. And I applaud the math department at Consol for thinking about doing it a different
Yeah.
way. And I see that they've tried something and it's paying dividends and starting to catch on other places.
Is there a type of like sharing that goes on of like things like this for do you know what I mean? Like to offer these best practices? Because I think this is
So
great.
we do have informal sharing. We certainly have them at our faculty meetings on a monthly basis. But probably the biggest thing we have most years is at the beginning of the year, we have our You Matter conference, which is where our own teachers and administrators and counselors are teaching. It's a one day of professional development for us, by us. And so we're sharing things of this nature and many other best practices. And so that's one of the things that happens usually at the beginning of the school year. And so that's a way for us to get together and share those things.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Brittany.
Let's go over there. She'll give you your grade.
So getting back to the presentation, and that's the intention was so that y'all could see what we're doing with it and how everything we talked about, like I said prior before, is related to it. And, you know, they won't remember me, but they'll remember Ms. Hawkins. And, you know, hopefully the tools that she used will make me proud. So that being said, So overall, what are our system integrity? You know, we want to make sure we're using open practices with the vendors and everything else. Mutually accountable for a high standard. As you can imagine, you know, our department, we have access to a lot of information. And so we personally make sure that each one of us is accountable for everything and that we're not sharing anything. Nothing's exposed, social securities and things like that. So we take care of the data as safe as and secure as we can. And that whole process is being transparent. So everything we do, we want to make sure that, and if anybody comes in and asks us, you know, with the right clearances, we can share with them how we do everything. So that being said, all of our contracts we use, we try to stay with our, you know, purchasing department's recommendations. So we use a lot of state contracts, DIR, purchasing co-ops, PACE, things like that. So you'll see a lot of our bids are done that way. For things that are really off the wall, we do go out and do the competitive bid situation. But wherever we can, we try to use state and local contracts in that. We do have some sole source contracts just because if you went out for a bid on something like Power School, which is our financial systems, you know, it would cost too much to take all that data and transform it into something else. And so for those issues, we just go ahead and use a sole source contract per legal guidelines and make sure we do everything according to what we need to do. So major vendors, I just threw that out there so you can see. These are probably the biggest providers that we spend money on, or manufacturers we spend money on. So Hewlett Packard does our computers, Microsoft, Google. Well, Google's free, so we don't put that out there. Power School, Schoology, and Smart Technologies, and Wirestar and Sunlink is our internet providers. So those are our biggest expenditures, I guess you would say. And if you ever get asked, Aruba and HP are now, like everything else, they've merged together. So it's the same company. So this gets into Mr. Schaefer's question. So our replacement schedules for computers, 5 years is our target for teacher and student, and 3 years for Kate. Why do we do 3 years for Kate and not 5 years for student computers? Well, they're the more advanced programs. So they're doing a lot of programming. They're doing a lot more science, technology, math stuff, and so they need more CPU resources. And so it directly relates into making sure our students, when they walk out of these programs, are trained on the latest and greatest, so that it'll help them get, you know, industry certifications and things like that. Actual, you know, we're sitting at 5 years for our teacher computers, 6 years are for students, and 4 years for our Kate computers. I put a note on there. We do utilize a trickle-down policy. So as the Kate computers, since they are newer, essentially, we will roll it down to a classroom that doesn't need such an intensive processing power. So we try to maximize our resources as much as possible. I want to point out that, yes, we are very reliant upon IMA funds and bond funds for all of this. And hopefully our legislature will realize that there's a funding shortage, and, you know, we'll get more into our general budget, and we won't have to give 14 million back to the state, which Mr. Martindale enjoys doing so much. But that's the world we live in right now.
Very helpful.
Yes. So how do we protect information? And a lot of this we talked about was, first of all, is end user awareness. We need to make sure our people know, and we do a lot of training on making sure our people know what to click on, what not to click on. That's unfortunately 90% of the breaches that you hear worldwide is based on end user error. So as long as we can educate our people, then we can hopefully take care of that. But we do have data breach response plan in place. We do use unique IDs instead of social security numbers, where their social security numbers are available, which we have to do for some state mandates, reports, we have to have them in there. We do use the best practices of encrypting and making sure that we're not just, you know, sending it as attachment on an email. We make sure that that's all done correctly and legally. Content filtering, antivirus, malware, all of those things we kind of discussed. We do things like a login timeout. Now, we are working on that, and you may start hearing comments based on conversations from teachers, because right now we do not force them to log out because it would interrupt a whole process of instruction, because they don't want to go back and re-log in the middle of the day or middle of a class, unfortunately. We do logins for administrators and things like that. It's a forced login, but we are going to start looking at really forcing it down on teachers, and so, which you may get cornered in the grocery store. So, risk exposures and legal issues. So obviously we mentioned student and faculty personnel information, social security numbers, healthcare information. That's a big risk we try to make sure we take care of. Payment card information, credit cards. So we cannot accept credit cards without having the network secured and everything else. So that's a big risk, because everybody wants credit cards or debit cards. So we have to always concern ourselves with that. And then we have to worry about physical and virtual breaches. So are they getting in virtually via computer? Is it a kid sitting in the classroom, or is it, somebody out in Yugoslavia, wherever it may be?
Yugoslavia doesn't exist.
I know it doesn't exist, but,
It's Soviet Union.
Soviet Union, or wherever, China. Or is it physical? Are they physically walking in and actually getting into access? So we constantly worry about that as a risk and exposures, and we minimize that as much as possible. So, and we also have to meet our federal guidelines on legal issues. So there's our SIPA compliance, FCC, HIPAA, FERPA, all of those items we have to make sure that we're in compliance with. So getting into performance metrics. So obviously we got to be able to measure ourselves somehow, see if we're successful or not successful. So what we're going to do is go through our metrics, what we look for targets, and then if you see anything, please let us know what it is. And then, every year you get a board update of what we're at, and these metrics are included in that. So productivity, quality, timelessness, and customer. I can't talk today.
Sorry.
Apologize.
You're saying lots of words. You're doing great, brother.
And customer satisfaction, yeah. So what we do is we have a work order system in place, and we want to track that and see how, how successful we are at meeting our target. So our target is 95% of getting those work orders resolved. Why 95%? Because there's some of them we just can't resolve, and the resolution is what you're asking us just can't happen. So, but given the numbers, I think we're doing pretty good. We're above 95% on, the past 3 years. This does not account for, and you'll see it on another slide too, of, again, I'm trying to make sure we're doing customer service. And so as they're walking down the hall, I did an impromptu survey of all our technicians that says, what happens when you walk in? And one said, they'll walk into a classroom, and as soon as they hear the tech guys on campus, there will be a line come to them. So on average, it about 4 or 5, every time they were on campus, about 4 or 5 times they would have to undocumented work order, and they would work it. They asked them to go back and fix it and put a work order in so that we can at least track these things. If you're a teacher teaching kids, you're not going back. It's just honest, But
This probably isn't representative of what you're
It's probably
saying.
just a little bit higher because of
Right.
what they're doing and
Sure.
able to fix quickly.
fix quick.
Do you have specific SLAs based on the order that,
We are developing that.
okay,
Yes, because you'll see, how long does it take to, like a computer issue that affects the classroom, you'll see it comes up, 3 to 4 days is what we're trying to do. If it's a bigger issue that affects the district, or a campus like College Station Middle School had an issue this
Right.
morning, we want a 4-hour response time on that. So
Gotcha.
yes, we are in the process of developing a firm document that we can share with everybody.
great, thank you.
So that being said, is the next on work orders is, and please stop me if there's any questions, but on 2 words, time to completion and acknowledgement. This is where we get our 3 days response, and this is mainly computers in the classroom. If it's a campus affecting or district affecting, obviously it's a lot faster. But first of all, I want to make sure that within 30 minutes that teacher knows if they put a work order in, that they get acknowledged that, hey, yeah, I see it. I'll come by this afternoon. When's your off period? Come after school? What's the issue? So that teacher at least knows it's being addressed. And then after that, then I want to have at least a 3-day response time. And again, it does not include the caught in the hall syndrome, but that is happening. But I do want to point out that, the number is going down. So we've added support. We've added, an extra technician, actually a couple technicians over the years, and it's actually coming down. So we realize the importance. Again, I don't want the teacher to say, well, my smart board's not working and I can't do this because of that, and it modifies my whole lesson plan. No, we want to get it resolved fast, and we're meeting our metrics. So we're quite proud of that. So when we talk about the number of supported devices per technician, so 750 devices is our TASB recommendation. So that's what I say, one person should be able to handle 750 devices. That's computers, TVs, smart boards, whatever it may be. As you can see, we're well over. But if you go back to the slide before, we're actually meeting our response of 3 days of having everything working. So I see this as a good thing. I mean, it's not a good thing that we're working our guys that much. There's overtime associated with making this happen, but we are taking care of the campuses. We're supporting the needs with the technicians that we have. And if you look, the reason the years are now, instead of being sequential, it's 2012, 15, and 18, that's when we added a technician. And so you can see what the numbers were accordingly. So, and it does not include iPads. I need to point that out too. So we have a systems administrator person that takes care of our mobile device management, and that includes the iPads, and a lot of it in conjunction with the librarians.
That change has helped out a lot, being more efficient, making that one change, putting the iPads basically under one person.
Yes. So, yes, it has. And we're trying to, again, because people are expensive, we're trying to utilize as much tools that we can do so we're not actually utilizing people and coming to Mr. Martindale all the time asking for another person. So, network systems uptime. So our target is 98%. So mentioned before the wide area network, local area network, internet, and systems. So, our target is, servers, which are our systems, they're a little bit less, 95% uptime because they're just the nature of the beast, but we're still reaching at 99.9%. Internet, again, 100%. We have not had any failures, knock on wood, on that. And the LAN and the WAN, it's 16 was a good year for us on the local area network. We've had a little hits on 17 and 18, but those hits were only affected the campus. It's still a big deal to the campus, but it didn't take down the entire district. So, quality. So, one of my issues of quality is employee retention. We mentioned that our technicians fly away to A&M and want to blend, and so we want to take a 10%. We don't want any more than a 10% rollover. And so if you look at all staff, including all our system and network administrators and instructional technology, we're at a 4%. So we're meeting, that goal. But if you look at only the technicians, it's creeping down, but it's still, it's above our 10% threshold. So we're trying to work with HR, that's what we're talking about, maybe a level 1, level 2, and a level 3, give them some more growth because if the system administrators or network administrators don't leave, which they haven't, which we're glad on, but there's not a real path for them to move up unless we get another position. And like I said, we're trying to be more efficient with people right now. So anyway.
So basically losing one technician a year? Is that how the math's working?
That 1.5, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, half of
That half one's tough.
that half one's tough. So anyway, customer satisfaction in our work order system at the end, you can do, a survey and say, how good are we doing and everything else. Our target is 90%, it's 93%. And that's the nature of the beast. If you're doing a work order and, if you're happy, usually you're prone not to answer a whole lot, but you do. But that's the way it is. But we are in our community-based accountability system and into our district improvement plans and everything else. We're going to include more and more, measures of measuring our customer satisfaction so that we can look at teachers, we can look at students, we can include parents, because a parent will never have the ability to go into the work order. A student will never have the ability to go into the work order system and truly give us a response. And so we're trying to include those into some way of accounting for, are we doing our job? Are we doing what we need to do? So. Anyway, so told you to get you done. So challenges. I'm doing good. Thank you. Increased demand of devices. I think if you talk anywhere in any campus, they're going to say they need more devices. I've been in a long-range technology plan. It's in curriculum and instruction meeting. It's everywhere. And so the only problem is I can get devices and it's, you got the cost of the device, but you got the cost of the support of the people behind it, the infrastructure, and all of that. So that is a challenge that we are constantly working. We're constantly addressing it, and we're working as hard as we can to get it fixed, or not fixed, but
Continuing to be
yeah. So that's just one of the challenges that we face. Privacy and security. That's what keeps me up at night, worried about breaches, worried about what kind of information is out there that can be stolen, what do we know, what do we don't know, that kind of stuff. And that's the nature of the business. I knew it when I decided to go into this, that was going to be an issue. And I think everybody realizes it too. So, and you're going to start seeing more and more cybersecurity. So if we're training kids, cybersecurity is a big market to
Oh,
get
it
into.
is. Tell all your kids to go into that market because it's a very hot job market. I would say if it didn't keep you up at night, that would concern me.
Yes.
It's definitely a real threat that's happening every day.
I agree with that.
Yes.
In fact, we've been addressing it a lot lately ourselves at where I work. The question I have is, in terms of sovereign immunity, we have pretty good shield from liability because some of the dollar figures attached with a breach can be
pretty hefty.
So I'm guessing that we do have still.
We have governmental immunity. obviously not an attorney and can't get into the specifics of what that would mean in the different instances of data breaches, but that being said, this is something that we take very seriously as a school district, and we've got people involved in that, people manually doing this. We're automating our systems to be able to ferret out any of these attacks that are coming at us, and it is something that we take great concern about, making sure that we are safeguarding your kids and your kids' data.
So, in the words of John Hall, I like to quote him every once in a while. It's because somebody asked him about Welborn Middle School, I think it was, and he says, "Yeah, I sleep like a baby. I wake up every 30 minutes crying." It's not that bad, but it does keep me up at night. So yes, the evolution of instructional technology, constantly making sure that whatever is the latest and greatest. I mean, Ms. Hawkins, was wonderful in showing how we can move around, and our classrooms now are no longer the traditional, I'm going to age myself, of, the 4 rows, 5 deep, desk, everybody sits around. No, it's all movable around, it's pods, this person's working over here, this person's working over here, small groups, small clusters. I need to make sure that I'm keeping the technology up to date so they can do those kind of things. So, Dr. Trammell over there keeps me on my toes. Let's just put it that way. Campus facilities, again, we're putting wireless access points. This is the best example I can say. So as you put a wireless access point into a classroom, that is connected via cable back to a switch. That switch requires electricity. That switch requires to be cooled. So these campuses, for example, South Knoll was built, in the 70s, and this was never even thought about. 60s? Okay, 60s. And so we are constantly retrofitting. And so I do a lot of meetings with John Hall about what's our next plan of attack to make sure we have what we need to keep this infrastructure up and running. And then wireless growth, which goes back to everything, is we need to make sure. Yes, yes.
Right there.
Right there. Right here, right in that one spot, yes. So one of my last challenges is employee recruitment and retention. Is, we've lost a lot of good technicians to Texas A&M and Blinn too. I'll keep forgetting that Moses went to Blinn. But we train them up and they leave, and which I'm happy for them, and when I do my reference checks and everything else, I tell them, I want to give you something bad about them to say, but, they're quality guys. I can't help it, but, that is an issue that I always kind of face, is keeping them here. So, and with that said,
Yeah, policy recommendations.
policy recommendations. So I don't have any recommendations for policy changes. So if y'all have any comments, questions, I'd be glad to hear from you.
Thank you very much for that.
I was just going to say, just real quick, that when you mentioned that I'm on the long-range technology plan, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, I was not expecting to enjoy this committee, but I have learned so much, and I'm still learning, and some of it's about me personally, the way I viewed things. I kind of had some aha moments as a parent, but I'm fascinated by all the thought that goes into this and how deep it is, And I mean, I have a lot of questions for myself. I wrote them down on the papers. We'll see if everyone else in that committee has some of the same questions as me and if that gets brought up. But I've learned a lot, and I really appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
So, and it's true, having her walk around. You said you want to make sure that the kids remember the teachers, right? And they don't want to you don't want them to remember that it didn't work half the time. Like, what they were trying to do didn't work half the time. So you don't think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, that is my goal. So.
I have a. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I just have a couple of comments and a couple of questions. First of all, one of the things I appreciate this presentation. It was very well done, and when I know sometimes explaining technology to the lay person, that can be difficult. So I appreciate the thought that went into this. One of the things that stood out is the summer intern program, that you hire our students that have maybe graduated. I think that's phenomenal. I think that can also be, right, like potential bench, right, of future technicians that may go to A&M or to Blinn or whatnot. So I love that. How long has that been in place?
Since Chris was here, right?
Yeah, it's.
Oh, it's new.
No.
Oh.
Chris Spire. So it's been in place probably 15 years.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
we
awesome.
and we have on your note our phone guy, one of our network administrator guys, is
Was
one
he
of-
an intern?
Was an intern, and we've have 2 technicians that all came out of our intern
That's
program.
phenomenal,
So-
phenomenal. So hats off to you on that. Quick question on the instructional technology. And we may not have seen this in the presentation, and it may be something that you're tracking, but are you, like, when you've rolled out new technologies, as far as like the implementation goals and the adoption goals, are you measuring that? Or do you have the goal set for that, and are you measuring that, and how are you tracking against that?
It's under development, yes.
Okay.
With Miss Ryan coming on board, she's been grateful and helpful of adding somebody else to help deal with that, because that's one of the things I always wondered is, if we rolled something out,
Yeah.
is it really benefiting, or is it just sitting in the corner not being used,
Right.
or what? And so,
Right.
yes, that's one of the tasks that once she gets Schoology, and she's almost through.
That's a recommendation that I'd like to make. It's like for maybe future readouts, is being able to understand what the goals were, and how you're tracking against it. I always call it like the inspect what you expect. I think that would be really helpful to understand.
Most of the physical devices have come from somebody starting or piloting. Even when you go back to smart boards started with a few schools, a few classrooms, Education Foundation grants. The document camera's the same thing. The Red Cats, where we do our voice, the same thing.
Right.
And so those are the ones that people try them out, other people see them, they gain momentum, and then it becomes the district standard. So rarely on a device type of situation do we go to a conference, see something that's great, and buy it, for
Right.
18 campuses.
Right.
So your point, though, about making sure we have measurable goals and expectations for programs that we use is well made, and I think that's something that we're working on.
I've got it.
Great, thank you.
I've got it marked down here. Yes.
Thank you.
More, are you, okay. I wanted to draw attention to one thing, and I think it's a very important part, and it's the ethics and that digital citizenship. Because, for most of the things that my kids get into or could get into, I have some knowledge or experience, or I've at least heard about other people doing them, and can help guide and instruct. But on technology, they live in a different world than I do. And their peer group, I don't even know what the issues are, much less how to address them. So, like the virtual networks, I know what that is, but I don't know how to go about creating one for myself to get around some filter that's in place. But giving those kids the tools to help identify right from wrong and to go through a good decision-making process is very important. And I'm very appreciative that we have that, because it's, quite frankly, something I'm not really able to provide as a parent to my kids. I can, in general, teach them right from wrong, but not in that world of technology. So I hope we continue that and maybe even beef it up. Again, the kids and their abilities, just the things that I actually get to hear about, I am amazed. They have ways to get around, quite frankly, anything that I would ever know about.
So I'd like to address the as a parent aspect of that, and I'm a parent too, of a couple of high schoolers, and I don't know all of these things that are available to kids, and I've got lots of questions. We know parents across the district do. That's why we're in the development of a parent portal, a parent education portal right now, through the digital citizenship work that we have already started this semester. But Mr. Mann and Mrs. Ryan are getting together with representatives from all 19 campuses, parent representatives, and going to get feedback from them and say, okay, you're parents of elementary school kids, middle school kids, high school kids. What is it in the social media realm, in the technology realm? What is it that you would like to know about? What is it that we can do a better job of putting some online resources available for you to learn? And so that process is going on even now, starting to see what the real desires are, and putting those things in place and building upon that library, that portal of resources as we go on.
Thank you. I think that's great. It gives us an option other than waiting until something bad happens and and then saying, okay, don't do that.
Reading about it on Facebook.
Reading about it on Facebook or, right, hearing about it through the grapevine or something. So being a little proactive, I really do appreciate that approach. Comments?
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good
And
job. We done?
We are, if you are.
Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Great timing, so thank you for that.
Look at that, right at one.